Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
Colton Brown, tonight we're going to be talking about a small show, a show that's not well known, called Game of Thrones.
Oh, well, you really had me there. I mean, I was just absolutely shocked.
Surprise.
When you revealed that we were continuing our series on Game of Thrones as we had previously agreed upon. You might have had some of the listeners in suspense. I mean, they probably saw the episode title on their podcast feed, and they're like, wait, what's going on here?
Yes,
is this
surprise,
a little
bitches?
little trickaroo? But no
Game
of Thrones. It's all Game of Thrones. It's more Game of Thrones. We are continuing our quest to conquer Westeros to get on the Iron Throne in time for season 8, the final season of Game of Thrones, later this year. Actually, less than a month away, I think, the first episode of the season. So we won't
got some watching to do.
Well, you definitely got some watching to do. I'd say at our current pace, we're almost certainly not going to be done with all of the seasons before the first episode airs live, but we'll definitely have everything watched in time for the grand finale, I guess sometime in May. But we're here to talk about Season 3 today. We've talked about Seasons 1 and 2 previously. Both of those episodes should be available to all listeners by now, so hopefully everyone has had a chance to listen to them. If not, maybe go back and listen before continuing on. But the idea here is that we're covering each season through timed exclusive bonus episodes for our supporters on Patreon. So the only way, in theory, to stay on top of all the seasons, to stay on time for everything for the final season, is to support us on Patreon and listen to these episodes as they come out, because that's kind of what we've oriented our schedule around is for our Patreon supporters. So on that note, if you are a supporter on Patreon and you're listening to this through Patreon or through your feed that you have from your Patreon support, we greatly thank you for your support. It's really much appreciated. And if you do want to stay on time with everything, with all these episodes as we do them, it's very simple. Head to our website, watchreviewrepeat.com, click the Premium tab up in the top left, and click the Become a Patron button. $2 a month will get you access to all of our bonus episodes that we're going to be doing on Game of Thrones, as well as any future bonus episodes beyond that, and early access to our regular episodes. So, on that note, let's talk about some Game of Thrones Season 3. And just as a kind of taking a step back, We've tried a couple different approaches in our Season 1 and Season 2 episodes, and I think the hope is to kind of merge some of those approaches in this one. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping for a good flow with this one, and we will briefly talk some non-spoilers for anyone that, for some reason, is listening to these episodes, hasn't watched. If you haven't watched any of Game of Thrones, maybe it'll be valuable for you, but particularly maybe if you haven't watched Season 3 yet, maybe you're working through rewatch or working through your first watch of the series, we'll talk a little bit about the season in general, let you know if it is of the same quality, if it's of the same ilk that the previous seasons were, which if you listen to those, you'll know that we liked them pretty well. So, to say the least,
That's it.
Season 3 aired March to June of 2013. Showrunners David Benioff, D.B. Weiss, returning from the first couple seasons, and I think you can expect them to return for the entirety of the series. So, wow.
Here we go.
The main cast continues to grow, and it's crazy. I was looking at the cast list for this. There's a lot of actors, a lot of great actors doing a lot of great work and like amazing characters that aren't even part of the main build cast. Like, it's crazy.
That's correct,
like for example, Brienne, Brianna Tarth.
Also known as fuck is her name? Star Wars.
Captain Phasma. Yes,
Captain
yes.
Phasma. That's right.
Yes. But like Gwendolyn Christie, who portrays Brianna Tarth, is literally not part of the main build cast. So there's a lot of people like Gwendolyn Christie who are in a lot of the episodes of the season, but just due to weird acting contracts aren't even part of the amazing main title sequence. But I think they get their due in later seasons if they're still around, to be fair. So anyway, so this is not an exhaustive list. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. So just because I'm saying these people's names, it's because, well, they have a good part to play, but maybe they just have better agents or something. I don't know what it is. But anyway, Peter Dinklage, of course. Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Lena Headey, Emilia Clarke, Kit Harington, Richard Madden, Ian Glenn, Michelle Fairley, Aidan Gillen, Charles Dance, Liam Cunningham, Stephen Delane, Carice Van Houten, Natalie Dormer, Isaac Hempstead Wright, Sophie Turner, Maisie Williams, Alfie Allen, John Bradley, Una Chaplin, Joe Dempsey, Jack Gleason, Rose Leslie, James Cosmo, Jerome Flynn, Conleth Hill, Sybil Kikili, and Rory McCann. That is your main cast for Game of Thrones Season 3, your starring cast. But again,
there's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people there, and we don't want to discredit certainly the performances of those that are not mentioned by name there, because as per usual Game of Thrones fashion, the casting team knocked it out of the park. Everyone continues to excel in their roles, whether they're new to the series or whether they're hanging around for a second or third time. So I'm going to do what I did before with a bit of a plot synopsis. So this is to kind of get you up to speed where the realm is as of the beginning of season 3, roughly around the beginning of season 3, and then we'll talk non-spoilers, and then we'll go full-blown spoilers. We've got so much to say, lots of things to talk about for sure. But this comes courtesy of the Game of Thrones wiki, who I don't know, someone was crazy enough to write up this nice long synopsis of
it's getting
where
longer,
the realm,
isn't it?
Where the realm stands. Yeah, well, it's quite
thickens.
like the show. More families are getting thrown into the mix. The things just get crazier and crazier the longer the show goes on. So, season 3 spans several months on a world where the seasons can last for years at a time. Autumn has fallen across the world, with winter not far behind. The people should be preparing for years of snow and ice, but the 7 kingdoms of Westeros instead remain gripped by civil war. Would-be King Renly Baratheon has been assassinated, altering the alliances in the war. The cruel boy King Joffrey Baratheon has won a great victory by securing an alliance with House Tyrell, with his supporters defeating his uncle Stannis in an epic battle at the Blackwater. Joffrey now commands the largest armies in the realm, and his triumph appears inevitable. King Robb Stark remains in the field in his homeland, the North, although it is partially under Ironborn occupation. Robb needs to decide on a course of action to win an overall victory, and he must also win back the allegiance of House Frey, whom he has offended by breaking his marriage pact with. King Robb has won every battle he has fought, but as with the old King Robert Baratheon, old King Bobby B himself, the Starks will have to see if good soldiers make good kings. It's good, no? It's
pretty nice.
Pretty well written. It's pretty well written. Stannis Baratheon may be defeated and most of his army destroyed or scattered, but he is not out of the fight yet. Having retreated to his headquarters on Dragonstone Island with his handful of surviving soldiers, Stannis' status as the last legitimate heir to his older brother Robert still casts a shadow over Joffrey's claim to the throne. With the priestess Melisandre at his side, Stannis can still influence the course of the war by striking where least expected. The lives of many others still hang in the balance. Bran Stark and his protectors must cross the frozen wastelands of the north to reach the Wall, while Arya must brave the war-torn Riverlands in search of her mother and brother. Brienne of Tarth, and we already shouted out this episode, also has the thankless task of escorting the captive Jaime Lannister home across hundreds of miles of battlefields and carnage. Theon Greyjoy must face the consequences of his actions at Winterfell. And in King's Landing, both Tyrion Lannister and Sansa Stark must brave the currents of a much more dangerous court in order to survive. On the eastern continent, Daenerys Targaryen has fled the political viper pit of Qarth. Her dragons are growing, and her fame is spreading. But to take the Iron Throne, she will need supporters and an army. Both may be found in the corrupt cities of Slaver's Bay for a price. Beyond the wall, the White Walkers are on the move, threatening both the Seven Kingdoms and the lands of the Free Folk. While the Night's Watch faces the threat of the White Walkers in the field, Jon Snow must infiltrate the wildling army of Mance Rayder and discover the King Beyond the Wall's plans. So there you have it. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. I gotta say, it's pretty well written. Pretty well written.
Yeah.
Someone, or maybe whoever, maybe there's multiple people that wrote that. They know their shit. They definitely know their shit. So, season 3. Obviously, I think again the bulk of our discussion is going to have to be constrained to our spoiler discussion because there's some wild shit that happens in this season. But season 3, I mean, I'd say generally speaking, it's just as good as the first 2 seasons, if not better, in my opinion. It
Absolutely.
It ups the game in some major ways, I think, in terms of...
It does. I think you...
the character arcs.
Where their season 2, I feel, had strong... I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It had strong set pieces, I think is probably the best word for it, i.e. Blackwater
particularly
Bay.
Blackwater. Right, yeah.
Where I think a lot of these, I think a lot of the strong moments at this point are based on character actions and character growth. There's a couple in particular that are very, very, very strong. I don't know, there's probably 3. 3 moments in particular really, really just, I don't know, just really paint a picture of what the fuck's going on. And it does it in a really strong way. I think, I don't know. It's really fucking good. I feel like after season 2, you're invested in the characters, and I feel like season 3 really doubles down on who stays and who goes, and everything moving forward. At this point, the clock is in motion. You know what I mean? And things are happening, and the dominoes are falling, and things are happening. And I think I'm repeating myself, but you see what I'm saying. Everything it's very methodical, and it's very heavy-handed in what happens, and it's unapologetic, and it's awesome. It's so good.
Yeah, and I didn't say this already, but this is in large part based off of the 3rd book in the Song of Ice and Fire series called A Storm of Swords, which I think is widely regarded as the best in the series, and I would agree with that assessment personally. This doesn't cover everything that happens in the book, but for me, it's not a coincidence that I would say the best writing of anything in the series up to date is found in this season. I say it's not a coincidence because I think it comes from the best source material.
I got you.
And I think that for the most part, especially those character moments I think that you're alluding to, I think a lot of that is sourced directly from George R.R. Martin's excellently written material. And I think they did a great job of translating a lot of that. I mean, obviously changes are made here and there. I think
I didn't finish the 3rd book, so at a certain point,
you're getting away from kind of
what I know,
where you're
right.
able to draw on your own knowledge. Yeah, that's fair. I haven't read it in a while, so I'm kind of just going off of my admittedly not great memory of it at this point. But I do know, I mean, there's obviously some broad strokes that are different, and I think in large part a lot of those are just carryovers from previous seasons when they had already made some sort of changes to characters and stuff like that.
Right.
Certain events have some sort of different consequences as a result of that. It's all right. I'm mostly saying nothing because we'll talk.
We will talk.
We'll talk about it. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a. I think it's less concerned with the spectacle.
Correct.
That's not to say that there isn't spectacle. There's definitely spectacle here, but nothing I don't think is flashy.
This is
Blackwater.
drama. This is drama. The whole series is drama.
I think this is a show that's pure drama, and it's not. I think season 2 has like one absolute major high point, and the rest of it's pretty good. Whereas I think this is excellent throughout. I think this is amazing throughout.
Correct.
I would say, it has a certain dramatic high point, absolutely. But I think even beyond that, I think that the character moments, aside from that, I think are actually probably stronger pieces of television.
I think every character is in
generally
stride.
speaking.
I think every where certain houses and certain characters in season 1 and 2 were not necessarily finding their footing, because that sounds like a criticism of what's going on, because it's not. But it sounds this season, every character that's on screen is there and is deliberate in their actions.
I agree. Yeah, it feels like they have an actual purpose to being shown on screen. I think this is going back to season 2, but I thought Daenerys was the weakest link in like season 2 of characters, where it was just like great first season arc, and then it felt like, what do we do with this character now?
Slow build.
And that's what happened with season 2. Whereas season 3, Dany gets a lot of play, and a lot of play that's really interesting, way more interesting than she got in season 2.
Right.
But I think that's true of any other character as well, where even your peripheral characters are getting some sort of something, and an interesting something too. Something that really feels compelling, feels natural for the character. Sometimes it's disappointing as a watcher of the show. Someone that roots for certain characters, and it's Game of Thrones, you win or you die, and sometimes it's not always that extreme. Sometimes it is, but, this isn't a show necessarily built for happy endings. It's not necessarily a show made to please the viewer. It's one that challenges your expectations, and I think season 3 does that
And it's
perhaps
a show.
more so than any of the other seasons before it.
It's a show not built on one season for a character in particular. You know what I mean?
Right. It is absolutely taking the groundwork that's been laid for all of these characters in the
Correct.
previous 2 seasons. And I think that, some characters had great stuff through both for the first 2 seasons, like I would say, unlike Dany. And they continue to get stuff, in here that really takes what has already been set forward and runs with it. And it runs with it in like the biggest, baddest way possible. And I think that that's what's awesome about this season is it's a really you kind of taught, you really hammered it home. Actually, it's drama, and it's real drama. It's human drama, and it's still obviously juxtaposed in this fantastical setting, and certainly never really shies away from the fantastical.
But this season in particular leans less on spectacle and more on the characters.
It doesn't. I don't think it relies on that for its big hurrah moments, and I think in some of the other ways, in some of the ways I think maybe the previous seasons had done, it's one that I think the high points are less from spectacle and more from just character. That's really the name of the game with season 3 is expanding on some characters that maybe didn't seem to have much depth before, and letting you see a different side to them,
right?
Or
seeing them grow.
Or introducing you to some new characters and giving you a reason to care about them, or it's maybe characters that you already care about, and they're going through hardships, and and you see them forced to grow, to mature, to live in this fucking horrible world where
one character in particular. One character
death is at
in
your
particular,
doorstep.
I particularly didn't care about one character all the way until probably the latter portion of season 3. You just think they're one way and they're one dimensional, and then as with people in life, you see that they're multifaceted, and there's more to them, and that's really I think that's the hallmark of the show, is that every character that is on screen isn't one dimensional. There's no character one. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you have those fucking people that you got soldiers and shit, but the main characters they're multifaceted people. They are people, and it's really good. God damn, the show's really good.
It's really good. Yeah. So yeah, we recorded season 2 we finished season 2 together when I was down in Florida a little while back, and we recorded on season 2, and I think we immediately rolled into season 3 at that point. You fell asleep, of course, which is par for the course for you. But I could tell how enthusiastic you were and how ready you were, and I was game too, I'd say. Unfortunately, I think we're recording a little bit later than I think we wanted to for this particular season, because I had a little snafu with having a certain school project to work on to get done. It ate up a good portion of my time, but
I'm several episodes through. I'm several episodes
in season 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I haven't gotten to season 4 yet. I'm very excited. I'm feeling like the way you are. I was like, oh, maybe I'll start it tonight after this. We'll see. But I watched the first episode with you. I didn't fall asleep, mind you. And then I watched, I think, 2 and 3 pretty shortly after. But then I had that kind of big gap, and then I just like binged 4 through 10 over the past 3 days.
That's a good grind there.
So I'm like, I'm full in Game of Thrones. Like, I'm back in, baby. I'm back in. I'm excited because it was like, I knew I wanted to watch it, and I knew I needed to get back to it. It wasn't so much like a compulsion of like, oh, I know I'm supposed to because I know we want to record it. Like, I legitimately really fucking wanted to watch Game of Thrones, and it was like painful to have so many days away from it. And now that I'm back, I'm happy.
Like, I got those movies. I got those movies to watch. I watched The Favorite, and I'm watching. It's like, yeah, this is really good, but I just want to watch Game of Thrones. And I know Colton's fallen behind, and I just want to. Push forward.
If you're not careful, you'll be at season 6 while I'm still finishing season 3.
Yeah, so
I know.
I'm having to play video games in order to take my time, because it's like I get home. It's like I could watch Game of Thrones. I can't watch Game of Thrones, so I'm having to curtail my my viewing experience because you have fucking obligations.
Understandable. I'm hopeful that we can maybe pick up the pace moving forward. We'll see. Make no promises, but I'm feeling it myself. That's, I think, maybe what I'm trying to say. So I don't have much more to say on the non-spoiler front. I think, technically speaking, the show continues to excel. Cinematography is always great. We see a couple of new locales in this particular season that we hadn't seen in seasons past, and we'll talk about that. But overall, I think it's great. Obviously, HBO continued to pour more money in it. The more successful and the longer the show ran. Actors are all amazing. We set a big name, big list of actors. All of them great. I don't really feel the need to shout out anyone right now, particularly because I think they're honestly consistently great. It might come up when we're talking spoilers, when we start talking about scenes and stuff like that, and in a little bit more detail. But it's really fantastic across the board. So season 3, I think maybe it just ups the game from the first couple seasons. And I would say, obviously Andrew and myself were well on board by the time season 2 ended, and so walking into season 3, of course we're going to watch it. But if you're, I guess maybe watching the series for the first time, I think season 3 just, you're in for a ride, baby. Let's put it that way.
yeah, for sure.
And it's a ride I don't think that you're going to want to get off. Maybe you will. Maybe certain things will happen, and you'll feel
fuck this show. I don't want to watch it anymore.
Maybe you'll feel frustrated as a viewer, but it's
like when Miss Peñalosa took my book in season 1. She took my book in season 1 in math class, and I was pissed. Anyways, you ready to get into spoilers, man? There's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about. So yes, let's do it. Full spoilers for Game of Thrones season 3. So I kind of talked a little bit about how we were going to structure this episode, and my idea is kind of merging our character focus that we did with season 2 with more of a general discussion from season 1 that we did kind of like the episode to episode thing. So we're not going to do any of those in the exact same manner. What I'm thinking we can do is talk about certain settings, basically kind of categorized by setting or by a major event, as we'll probably start with. But and we'll talk about the journeys that the characters in those particular settings go on, maybe some noteworthy moments from those character arcs from the season, anything that kind of comes up naturally in the course of that conversation. So I think the only appropriate place to start with Game of Thrones season 3 is with the Red Wedding.
Oh, fuck, man.
It's quite possibly one of the most shocking events in television history, let alone Game of Thrones history. And it's a big fucking deal, let's put it that way. It's a heartbreaking moment. One that, even if season 1, maybe tipped you off that, hey, again, this isn't a show with happy endings. When old Ned lost his head,
this is different.
This is next level shit. This really,
it's so
really
brutal, so brutal.
Yeah, and especially in the context of rewatching. Well, actually, I think it actually kind of works the same way here. I was going to say, in rewatching season 1, we talked about how, Ned's ultimate fate was almost kind of the result of his decisions. And you could kind of see things leading to that, like he was making a lot of poor decisions that ultimately mounted in that. I mean, not to say that he deserved it, certainly not saying that, but you could kind of see in this world how he did not play the Game of Thrones very well. And interestingly enough, I think you can say that Robb Stark also did not play the Game of Thrones very well either, because this is a man that won every battle that he fought and lost the war in a pretty horrifying and brutal way, as you said. It's certainly not.
He had a I don't know. He had an interesting descent. He beheaded the Karstark,
right?
Who was a constant criticism of all of his actions. But maybe he was the voice of reason for his, maybe, I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, just the way they shot that and the way the episode ended, I picked up on, they played the tears of Casimir.
The Reigns of Casimir.
The Reigns of Casimir. Right. They play that throughout seasons 1 and 2.
The proud Lord said that I must bow so low.
Oh, man. And they play it on that fucking cello and shit, and nobody knows. But nobody knows. Except Catelyn.
Catelyn knows.
Catelyn knows.
Catelyn
knows at that point when that cello starts dialing in that tune, she knows that everyone in that room is fucked.
She's fucking shook for good reason.
Nobody else knows.
Yeah, everyone's just going about their merry business. No, not a care in the world. Yeah, it's really
at that moment when she looks up and she notices that something's not right, dude. Just fucking I can't think of a moment in television that I have felt the way that I felt during this portion of the Red Wedding. It's fucking terrible. It's so terrible. The way that the fucking Boltons, Roose Bolton at that point, he was, he appeared to be a loyal bannerman of Robb, and just brutally fucked so bad, and the stabbing of the fucking baby, and the wail of Catelyn when she's beheaded, or she got the cut throat and everything else. Oh my goodness. Shook me down to my core again. It shook me down to my core again. Man. I don't even like fucking remembering it. It just it's and the way they end the way they end the episode in just fucking complete silence.
Complete silence, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking A.
Yeah, so I think I told you, I think I texted you on Sunday saying that I was going to burn through the last 3 episodes of the season so that we'd be ready to record, and I didn't make it through all 3. I got through the Reigns of Casimir, I got through the Red Wedding, and I was just like, I'm good. I'm good right now. I'm gonna need some time to myself. And
man,
it's wow, it's speaking objectively, an exceptionally well constructed piece of television in the ways that you mentioned.
Fuck, I can't think of anything that's more well constructed.
I'm taking a step back right now before I part my wear my heart on my sleeve. Like you said, the tension. Oh man, you can cut it with a knife when Catelyn has that realization, and certainly for viewers like us, we know what's coming. And so when I watched it, I had an extra sense of dread throughout the entirety of the sequence of events, whereas I think certainly first-time watcher, certainly anyone that's not familiar with the books is going to watch that and, it's going to, blow their fucking minds and break their hearts, I think, in the worst way possible, too, because these are characters that I think are very endearing to I would say, most members of the audience. I feel like Rob is very much framed as a protagonist. He's a
For
good
sure,
guy.
yeah, definitely.
And Talisa, I think there's something very heartfelt about their romance in a world where
she's a wonderful woman. She's a very good woman, right?
Yeah, in a world where it's mostly nothing but political marriages between people that sometimes don't like each other very much at all. It's nice to see like a win for someone being like, yeah, I'm gonna marry this woman that I fell in love with on the battlefield and stuff like that. And Catelyn, she's gone through so much already, losing her husband and basically losing her daughters and her sons, for all intents and purposes, and being broken enough to a point where she desperately attempts to trade Jaime Lannister to get what she thinks is going to be her daughters back. Obviously, she doesn't know the truth of that situation, but she's a broken woman, and
for the longest time she had such contempt for her son's decision. She had such contempt for Talisa. She wouldn't. I mean, there's a point there where she's weaving the like, it looks like a dream catcher almost, or like a basket or whatever, but it's not a basket, and she looks at her and she almost has the same contempt that I saw a lot of contempt that she had for Jon Snow in her eyes with her son's decision in marrying that woman, and it's just, it speaks a lot of her character and how Ned Stark kind of grew on her, and it feels like, she's very much a continuation of that character.
Yeah, and I think she inherited his pragmatism in the sense that she knows Walder Frey is not a man to be trifled with, not a man to cross, and she knows that could have consequences. Obviously, I don't think she expects anything that quite reaches the level that it does here in the Red Wedding, but I think she has a good sense for that, and she knows that, well, decisions have consequences. Obviously, Ned's decisions had consequences for him, and Rob's in turn had I think similar consequences. I think that was the point I was trying to make, is you can trace it all back to his decision to break his vow to marry one of Walder Frey's daughters. Like, that's, I guess it's actually spelled out in the show. Karstark is the one that says, it's like, you lost this war the moment you married that whore, or whatever he says, like, Karstark obviously not necessarily depicted as the most sympathetic character.
Man of the North, though. Simple. You gave your word.
That was the beginning, and then his decision to execute Karstark for killing the Lannister cousins. That's another big moment where he basically loses half his army because they're like, well, fuck this, And so it's like, in spite of Rob winning all these battles, as I said, he made enough bad decisions that ultimately led to his downfall, and again,
ultimately
I don't think anyone expected it to be this, but
I mean, not only was he killed, his mom was killed, his fucking, all his soldiers were killed. I mean, it was a complete destruction of the Northern Army. I mean, what else do you have? Yeah, I mean, there's nobody left up there. I mean, they killed all the Stark men.
What was left of his contingent? I mean, what was left is the people that marched home after he killed Karstark. So
correct.
Karstarks, I guess probably not the Umbers at that point. The Boltons obviously benefited quite greatly from it.
Yeah. And Roose Bolton, I think the character of Roose Bolton was revealed whenever Jaime Lannister hits Harrenhal. When Jaime Lannister enters Harrenhal, and he says, "Listen, I'll just go ahead and send you home and just tell your dad that it wasn't me." You know, that's a big. I mean, that's a huge thing. He should have shipped him back up to Rob. You know, but he doesn't. He doesn't. He folds under the Lannisters.
He sees the power play that he's potentially able to make, and
he's playing the Game of Thrones.
It's one of those things like it feels like the people, I would say through season 3 for the most part, the people that have achieved real success are the people that are willing to get their hands dirty and to look at doing the right thing and say, you know what, fuck that. I'm going to do the other thing. I'm going to do the opposite.
And they win. And they win. Really, I will tell you, if you're, I don't know if we're trying to contain it to a box, but there is, people get what they deserve in a big way. You know, people learn to play the game. You know, people that may have been oblivious. I feel like those people that were oblivious learned to play the game extra well. And the people that were punished for being who they were and being honest people, I feel like they come back in a meaningful way. So, if you quit watching after the Red Wedding, I would advise you not to, because there's big payoffs. But at the end of the day, you learn to fuck the Freys, and fuck Roose Bolton and all those fucking people, because they're terrible, terrible human beings. Yeah. Where do you want to go next?
Well, it's just some lingering thoughts on the Red Wedding. Yeah. Well, I can certainly concur. Fuck Walder Frey. Fuck all the Freys.
Which fuck Walder Frey when you meet him. He's grabbing like, right.
I think
what's the guy in the north? What's the guy in the north?
That he was a shithead.
Beyond the wall.
Craster.
Yeah,
yes.
He's the same fucking guy as Craster, but he lives in a castle. Fuck that guy. He's a human piece of shit. Fuck him, man. Oh, these fucking people. They get you so mad. They get you so mad. The show.
Well, I was going to say, as a follow-on to that, interestingly enough, I find Roose Bolton to be a very interesting character. I find the actor portraying him to be very charismatic in that role.
He is.
And up until that point, it's kind of the same thing with Stannis, where like I talked about how I was like, I don't know, man, I think I might be on Team Stannis the Manus in season 2. And then I'm like, okay, I guess maybe not. Roose Bolton's kind of the same way. I'm like, I like this guy. He's kind of a cold, but he seems
he's like a Tywin of the North, for real.
Yeah, he seems like a nice, like a good level-headed approach to things, and like, obviously he can see that he doesn't approve of Rob and Talisa, but he doesn't outwardly speak out the way that Karstark does. But then he pulls this shit, and you're like, well, you're on the shit list, dude. I'm sorry. There's I mean, I can't help you at this point, my friend. I cannot help you anymore. So yes, those they're both the Frey, all of the Freys are on the shit list, and all the Boltons for that matter are on the shit list.
He does gain Dominion of the North, though. He gains Warden of the North.
That's right.
It was a good power play, I mean, if that's what you're gonna do.
It's interesting that the Red Wedding, it wasn't actually Rob's wedding at all. It was Edmure and Rosalind Frey, Edmure Tully that gets married, and we this is our first introduction to him. This is his first time we see him, Catelyn's brother,
Edmure.
Edmure, yes, and Rob kind of gives him a lot of shit for being kind of a dumbass, and there's a few moments, especially I guess when
the first moment
Hoster Tully, when he's trying to shoot the arrows to try to.
I have a note. Interaction between Black. I took notes this season, and they started. My notes, oddly enough, that you mentioned it here. My notes started with interaction between Blackfish, Rob, and the guy who couldn't hit the fucking boat.
Yeah, that was Edmure. that was him. He was the one that couldn't hit the boat. I mean, I couldn't hit the boat, to be fair, but
fucking Edmure, what a bitch. Edmure is a bitch,
and it's interesting because he, they said Rob kind of castigates him for what he did, which kind of undermined his entire strategy that he was trying to draw basically Tywin's forces out and try to route them, I guess, in an open field away from King's Landing. But
that's an interesting point. I don't mean to cut you off, but what was really admirable about Robb, I feel like he wouldn't have even brought it up if Edmure wasn't such a cunt about wanting recognition for his actions. Hey, I did this, and the other guy, the Blackfish, is calling him out. Hey, listen, shut your mouth, blah 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 blah. And then finally, Robb's like, listen, you completely undermined everything I was trying to do by capturing the fucking mill. I don't want the fucking mill, and I'm sorry. I just get really passionate about this shit. I feel like kind of like Alex Jones whenever he talks on the podcast.
The turn of the frog's gay. Edmure lost the war. He lost the war for Robb Stark, the king of the North.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. Yeah, I don't really care for Edmure. I do care, however, for Blackfish.
Blackfish is fucking cool. He's a badass character. Also, probably the most fortunate man in Westeros. For having excellent timing for taking a piss, I should say.
That's it.
Worked out pretty well for the
Bruce
Blackfish.
Bolton calls it out too.
Mm-hmm.
You got everybody but the Blackfish, which I guess at this point Blackfish is probably the rightful heir of Riverrun at this point, right?
A Riverrun, yeah, because
Warden of the East.
Well, because I guess Edmure would technically be it, but he is being held prisoner by the Freys as of the conclusion of the season. So yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly where they go with that, and that's we're not going to talk about that right now.
We're not going to talk about that right now, but that is the greater implication.
I think he would be, I guess, kind of in charge of Riverrun at this point. So yeah. So I feel like I never quite closed the loop. So I'll say, the Red Wedding, as it's filmed, as it's depicted, again, just an amazing piece of television. But as someone so invested in these characters, you bring the subjective side into that, and man, it's just...
We never even talked about Arya.
It's an experience.
Arya has never been so close to her family in 2 seasons.
Yeah, that's just another level of just fucking drama laid on top of that.
The Hound escorts her to the twins. And just as she fucking arrives, and the Hound actually even calls it out, why are you stressed out? You're so close to your family, you don't think you're going to see them? The moment that she arrives at the twins, her brother is fucking murdered. Her mother is murdered. And by Walder
not only
Frey.
that, she literally sees his headless corpse being trotted around on a horse with his fucking direwolf's head sewn on top. Like, man, that's imagery right there. That's some fucking... I mean, Arya at this point, man, she's both the Stark girls have really obviously been through the ringer for different reasons, but man, like that, to come that close, and in some ways, I guess you could look at it as, well, if she had arrived 5 minutes sooner, she'd probably be maybe dead too. But it's almost that'd almost be a relief, in some ways, compared to having to witness that, and obviously, I guess she didn't firsthand see, that the massacre within, but she saw enough certainly to. I mean, we see her in the last episode when she just she sees the phrase, and man, she doesn't give a fuck anymore. She just flat out murders people at that point. And at that point, you're kind of just like, yeah, you should. You know what I mean? Like, good, do it more. We need more of that, please.
And shout out to the Hound, man. Shout out to the Hound. He has an excellent arc throughout the series. He's probably... he's a top tier character. For me, anyways.
And I think we didn't even point out his greatest line from season 2 when we recorded our episode. I felt bad about it. I think I pointed it out after the fact. But was it fuck the city, fuck the king, fuck the king's guard, or some version of that.
I'm fucking leaving. Essentially, fuck you guys. I'm out. Peace. I'm done.
Yeah, and so we definitely explore a lot more with Sandor Clegane, throughout this season as kind of an aftermath to his decision that he made at Blackwater. Where he's, you know what, fuck this. No, I'm good. You know, I'm not being dog anymore for this fucking little piece of shit.
Yeah.
King, you know.
So, anyways, we can probably move on to the next setting.
Yeah.
If you like. I feel like
that's the big thing. That's the red wedding. I mean, it's one of the most lasting things I think for the entire series. Everyone talks about it. It's something that really, you know, does turn the tide, you know, away from the War of the Five Kings, who, I mean, there's not many left at this point, or not many left in a position of strength anyway. I mean, Stannis is kind of just fucking around on Dragonstone for the most part, biding his time after, you know, he's licking his chops after battle or Blackwater, and you know, this is the end of the King in the North. You know, this is it. This is it for old Robb Stark. You know, and you know, he goes out in the most brutal, vicious way possible, loses his mother, his wife, his unborn son or daughter. Like, man, it's fucking, ooh, it's rough. It's real rough. So rest in peace, King in the North. The North remembers.
The North remembers. That's it.
So yeah, let's jump around to something else. I have again, we're not jumping around in any specific order, so maybe why don't we jump over to the Brotherhood Without Banners? Because we talked about Arya and the Hound a little bit. I feel like that may be the most appropriate place to go over to.
I'm going to hop into my notes real quick. Just a side note, because we are hopping around. Hot Pie is a nice boy. That was my notes. Hot Pie is a nice boy.
He's a nice boy.
He's a nice boy.
Baked her a nice. It's a
wolf.
It was a wolf bread. Wolf bread. Yeah. Pretty good.
And it was real good. She says it was very good. Yeah. So the Bannermen without the Brotherhood Without Banners.
That's the one. Yeah. Let's do that. So, of course, you know, to tie it into what we already talked about, they're the ones that. Well, I guess they kind of inadvertently run into Arya early in the season and later capture the Hound, and that's kind of how those two characters ultimately kind of get pulled together to even be present at the Twins in the first place. But I'm a big fan of this part of the story. I think probably more for just like lore reasons. Like I really enjoy the like Beric Dondarrion and Thoros of Myr, like those two characters in particular are just fucking badass.
Beric Dondarrion being the one that gets revived, and Thoros of Myr being the
he's
red
the Red
wizard.
Priest, yeah.
The Red Priest,
yeah.
okay. I'm all about it.
Yeah, like it's just cool. Like it's like this weird side of like we saw weird shit with Melisandre in the cave in season 2, and like this is kind of maybe like another side of the
religion.
Red God.
Yeah.
You know, working in mysterious ways, I should say, I guess. You know, Beric has now been revived. I think it says it's his 6th life, like, or something like that, after he fights the Hound in that trial by combat. Like I said, I find it interesting, mostly in a bubble here. Because I just really like the concept of it. You know, it's basically these people that in this fucking basically lawless world just kind of lean into that, embrace that, and you know, are just trying to kind of just do their own thing, you know, and have banded together. And
well, they stand
really like
for
that.
the Brotherhood Without Banners. I mean, the notion of the title itself is that they're standing for the people that the kings and everything else is they're just trampling on. You know, while people battle for these seats under these banners, they're standing for the people that have, you know, inns and people that have farmlands, and while the countryside burns, these people stand for those people. And I think it's a really noble cause. And Beric Dondarrion, I should say, not Beric of Dondarrion. He was actually, I didn't know this. I didn't pick up on this until
he's in season 1.
Yeah, he is in season 1. Ned Stark sends him out to take out the Hand after he's burned after the mountains burned villages and shit and everything else. So he sends him out to fight the mountain.
The mountain.
Rides.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's
it doesn't work out well for him.
No, but
as we learn.
Thoros of Myr is there to revive him. And I find that character I find both those characters very compelling. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin almost. They're I don't know, they're not two sides of the same coin, but they appear together. You know what I mean? They're interesting people.
Well, they have an interesting dynamic together, and
Correct,
obviously
yes.
the way it's like neither of like I think like the way Melisandre particularly kind of like sets herself out as like, I'm doing everything for the Red God, and I see these visions in the flames, and I understand what I'm doing, and I'm doing this because I foresaw your victory, Stannis. Whereas like Thoros is just like, I don't know. I mean,
I like this guy. Reason, he's a good guy.
It's like, I don't really believe in this shit, but then I fucking said some words, and this dude came back from getting cleaved in half by the fucking mountain. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe there is something to this after all, I guess, So, like, it's interesting to see that dichotomy of someone that doesn't really seem to believe in his own things, but clearly exhibits powers, whether it's granted by this god as is kind of correct the implication, right. Or what exactly what's going on. We don't really know kind of the full extent of it, but it's really interesting. Like I said, I think from a lore perspective, I think mostly for me is just to kind of see like magic or
multiple dynamics
something happening here,
right?
And to see that intersect with interesting characters in Arya, who you see multiple
dynamics of that religion, where you don't really see the only interpretation of that religion you have is through the Red Woman, and you see a follower of that faith, Thoros of Myr, exhibiting those powers and stuff, and it's really interesting. Especially in Westeros, you have her birthing demon shadow babies, which is fucking crazy. But Beric also lights his sword on fire, and he's fucking cool. That's all I'm trying to say. It's fucking cool, and he fights.
I think that's what it is. Like, it's not the deepest, I think, part of the season by any stretch of the imagination, but it's fucking cool. And that's good enough sometimes. It's good enough to be fucking cool sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, and it is cool, though. You can see that strugglers of that faith find faith through the powers of that god, which is interesting. And it's cool because a lot of people struggle with their faith, and they find their own means of worship and stuff, and that's cool. So yeah.
And it's interesting, again, the way that it intersects with Arya and the Hound, two characters. The Hound, again, coming from that place of rejecting his place next to, Joffrey and King's Landing, and kind of finding his own path from that point. And he very much rejects this notion that he's like his brother, just this, rapist and murderer, the way that, the Mountain seems to thrive and revel in that sort of behavior. The Hound seems like he's cut from a different cloth. Like, I think he's trying to spurn this image of him as just this savage, the way that his brother is. And so it's interesting to see him kind of, he's certainly not the most graceful individual by any stretch of the imagination. He's certainly not an innocent man as well, but you could see that there's something deeper to the character that starts to shine through at the end of season 2, and I think it continues to shine through here, and I think we'll get a little bit more of that in next season as well.
Rough around the edges, but he's down to his core. I think he's a
I think that's interesting. And and Arya, again, just going through the fucking ringer, and she gets hot pie leaves her. I mean, he leaves her with bread, which is when he is a nice boy. It's true. But Gendry gets kind of snatched away by Melisandre at one point, and Arya, it's just one thing after the other, like, of just shitty things upon shitty things. Like, Arya just, you see her resolve through a lot of it, but at the same time, she's still young, and and she's very openly against, I think, a lot of things that happens, but she's powerless to do anything about it.
Right.
And that's what's so frustrating for her as a character, is she's still, for all intents and purposes, this little girl that doesn't command any respect or fear among anyone.
No fear, but she does come into respect.
That's true,
especially from
Dundarian. Mhm.
Yeah, he calls her out on it. Perhaps you're the only one among us that has, any grit or whatever the fuck he says. The bravest one among us. She's really cool.
So again, awesome. I like this section of the story. I don't. And again, it's maybe not the high point of the season, but I think it's fucking cool. I will say as kind of a thumbnail or whatever, there is an interesting intersection between the Red Wedding and the Brotherhood Without Banners in the book, but the show doesn't really go that way, which I find disappointing.
I probably know about it, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to talk about it right now because it both involves future spoilers for the show and book spoilers, so I don't think this is the appropriate medium, but I want to point it out there because I want to put it on the record that I'm disappointed with how they chose to proceed past this point, and I don't think it's really going to naturally come up in the course of any of our future episodes. So I just had to get it off my chest.
So we'll talk about it maybe in like season 3 or season 4 or something like that.
Maybe. If you remind me, we'll talk about it off air. But that's neither here nor there.
I do want to talk about something.
Okay.
Let me refer to my notes.
What have you in your notes, my friend?
In my notes, I have that Jaime and Brienne of Tarth are the Tywin and Arya of the season.
Okay, so let's jump over to the Riverlands. Yes, that sounds like a good place to go. Expand.
So, in season 2, we saw a lot of character dynamics between Tywin, who was largely unknown, he was unknown in season 1, but was he unknown in season 1? I think that we got one snippet of him.
Tywin?
Cleaning the deer.
Yeah. We get a little bit of him at the end, but he definitely gets a lot more play in season 2.
Right. So in season 3, in season 2, there was a lot of character dynamics between Arya and Tywin. I feel like a lot of that growth, they invested in Tywin in season 2, as well as Arya, but they also invested in Brienne of Tarth and in Jaime Lannister in season 3. And I feel like season 1 and 2, I really didn't give a shit about Jaime Lannister. I thought he was just a piece of shit through season 1 and 2. But it wasn't until season 3 that you start to see his character kind of go full circle, and you kind of see that there's more there, and it comes through in a huge way. It's a huge investment through the remaining seasons. What little bit I've gotten into the future seasons, it really pays off. Jaime Lannister isn't what he seems. I feel like for the most part, Brienne of Tarth is a very she's a very transparent character. I don't want to paint her as two-dimensional. She's transparent, though. What you see is what you get. But she continues to grow, and Jaime Lannister grows in a huge way with his interactions with her. And they interact in such a way to where there's a lot of growth, and you begin to care about Jaime Lannister. I don't know. Do you agree? Give me some feedback.
Yes, I 1000% agree.
Okay.
I think for me, the Jaime and Brienne stuff is the best character work in the season.
I'd agree. Yeah.
Probably of the show to this point.
Yeah.
Particularly the bathtub sequence, I think, is probably like the pinnacle of kind of that relationship that develops between them. And I say relationship, but it's really just a mutual respect that develops, and it allows both of them to kind of shed, in some ways, their hardened exteriors and allow each other to really fully understand the other person in a way that we hadn't seen to this point. So, Brienne, I agree with you in general. She's certainly a character that what she thinks she does, and what she says she does, and it's largely just that. She's an honorable character, and she's honor bound to Lady Catelyn, and her singular goal is to serve her command to bring Jaime to King's Landing, to bring back what she thinks is going to be both Stark girls waiting for her there. And that, but she doesn't.
That evolves.
She doesn't like the Kingslayer. She calls him the Kingslayer. That's all she does. She calls him the Kingslayer for basically the entire season, and like even she's able to put her honor above her dislike for this person, and as they grow together, she sees that Jamie is. Well, she sees that Kingslayer is not just the Kingslayer. She sees that he's Jamie, at his heart. He is Jamie Lannister. He himself is a person that has his own feelings and conflicts and whatever his misgivings are. And certainly there are many that we've seen, pushing kids out a window. Not what I would
not
say
a good look.
is a good look. Yeah. Banging your sister and having 3 kids out of incest, questionable, to say the least. But there is something to him beyond that. He puts this. He pretends to be this badass, and he is badass. He's skilled and everything like that. But you put him in the most vulnerable position possible by taking away his badassery, or what he perceives as his badassery, and that he loses his hand.
You strip him away, and then even before he loses his hand, because he does lose his hand, and I have a note on that. I believe it says "fuck Jamie's hand" and that punk rock Bolton song.
This should help you remember.
Yeah, they cut off his hand, and then that's the end of the episode, and they play this badass Bolton song in punk rock form in the credits. Anyways, those are my notes. But even before he loses his hand, but up until he loses his hand, they're about to rape Brianna Tarth, and he talks that dude out of it, by saying that her father owns a castle on top of a sapphire mine or whatever, and he defends her, and she defends him, when they're kicking him down in the mud and everything else, and I just, like you said, it's a thing of mutual respect, I guess, but up until this point, you don't have any respect for him. And you can kind of see those qualities of a knight shining through what everybody calls a Kingslayer and everything else. You actually see a large dynamic of everybody coins him as a Kingslayer, but the question is there honor behind what he did? Because, you get the backstory of why he did what he did, They were about to kill everybody. They were about to burn thousands and thousands of people. And he saved those people by stabbing the person he was sworn to protect in the back. And it just goes to show you that things aren't two-dimensional. There's a lot of gray area, And I don't know. He's the gray area that he represents is a huge thing with the show, I think. And I think it's really important. I think it's a really important character, and I really like it.
Yeah, I agree. It really pulls the curtain back on who Jamie is as a person, and it's something. See, I think the thing with Jamie is throughout all of the moments that we'd spent with the character, people talk about him as the Kingslayer.
And he hates it.
Well, I think the thing is, I agree with you. He does hate it, but the public perception has built up this persona for Jamie. And I think it's easier for Jamie to just pretend to be that person and just lean into that instead of trying to combat it in any sort of meaningful way. So he just acts like that because people expect him to be that person. So he just, up until this point, he basically is that person. It's not until he's kind of mentally worn down from that, and then I think the real nail in the coffin is when he loses his hand, when he loses his sword hand, and that's the moment where he feels like all his sense of self-worth has been thrown out the window. Right. He's left with nothing but himself, his real self, the self that he can no longer, hide from the world, and now he has to kind of outwardly project it. And Brienne is kind of the recipient of that. And like I said, the bathtub sequence, I think, is the one in particular where that's when he's talking about why he did what he did, why he earned the moniker the Kingslayer, and how he feels about that, in the sense that, what would you do? That's kind of his sentiment. Yeah. He's like, I saved thousands upon thousands of people's lives by breaking my oath, and and this is how I'm rewarded for that, is people don't even recognize it. Ned Stark, the first time he saw me, he immediately cast judgment on me, sitting on the throne at that moment for what I had done.
He's bitter, right?
So it's it's really, really fascinating to be able to kind of peel back the layers on Jaime Lannister, the human, the individual, to see him for who he really is, and as we kind of talked about, as you talked about, there are moments where that somewhat shines through, but it's never quite illuminated, I think, until that particular moment, and then that kind of forges this, this dynamic between him and Brienne that I think is something that throughout the season kind of weighs heavy on him. He literally goes back for her at the end. Obviously he had vouched for her to prevent her from getting raped by the Boltons at that, earlier in the season, even though I think that was like you said, pre losing his hand. So you see that there's a shred of honor to him. There's something more going on, and then we see what's actually going on, and then
he jumps in the fucking bear pit.
He jumps in the fucking bear pit, yeah, without a fucking hand to wait it off with, and I think that shows Jaime Lannister's true colors, is what he did in that moment.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
and so
it's really fucking good. It's really good.
So I like I said, I think it's the best character work to date. I think it's phenomenal. Two actors there, Nikolai Coster-Waldau and Gwendolyn Christie, have really, really great chemistry together. I think they work exceptionally well together, and really just nailed all the minutia of any of those character interactions. And they end in an interesting spot with Jaime in King's Landing, looking very disheveled and losing, missing his hand, and Cersei kind of, staring at him. Like, I don't know. You've probably watched ahead, so I don't remember exactly what things look like past that, but it's a really interesting character moment to leave with, is how does, I think it's interesting in the sense of, how do we, as a viewer of the show, now that we've seen who Jaime is, what happens when he goes back to Cersei? What happens when he goes back to, presumably a position of power now that he's, no longer a prisoner? Is like, does he put up the wall again? What does he do? There's an answer when we'll get there.
Okay, all right. You don't want my answer.
So,
okay.
But I think in a bubble, viewing this
when you
season
lose
in a
a
bubble,
hand, you are never the same. He is not the same. He will not be the same.
He's not physically the same. He's not mentally the same.
He's a different person.
I think that us as the watcher of the show perceives him differently as
Correct.
well. So I think there's a lot of interesting things that it puts out there.
After 3 seasons of the same character, this character grows in a tremendous way, largely from the portion of the person who was sworn to protect him, and that person carries him through, and it's very touching. And she grows as a result of having to watch him. So it's really like I said, I think it's better than the Tywin portion of season 2, the Tywin area dynamic. But I think it's very much drawn from the same cloth, I think. And I really appreciate that the way that they weaved it into their storytelling. I think it was a very intelligent way to do it. So that's it's my 2 cents. It's my hot take.
All right. Well, let's slide on over to another area of Westeros.
Real quick, I have one note before I go too far, because I feel like we're going to move into another section. I have one note in here. It's a little bullet point, and it just says, fuck Pycelle.
You could probably, that's a note you can keep in there for probably every season.
Yeah, so fuck Pycelle. I believe that was
it when he dropped the note, or something else?
Yeah, I think it's exactly when it was. It was when he dropped the note on the floor.
He's not in this season a whole lot, as I recall, but
he got locked up, didn't he?
In season 2,
he got locked up in season 2, and
he was let out by the end of that season 2.
he was let out, and then he walked out, and then he was just he treated Tyrion like a piece of shit throughout season 2 or season 3. So I needed to get that off my notes. So yeah, I'm sorry. Fuck Pycelle. That was my top of the notes there.
I understand. Well, let's go over to Dragonstone. I actually don't have a whole lot to offer on Dragonstone, so I think we can probably discard with it relatively quickly, unless you feel very differently about it. But we see Stannis licking his chops post Blackwater. He's with Melisandre. Kind of, what's the next move? And Davos, as we learn, has survived his encounter. He eventually makes his way to Dragonstone and gets thrown behind the bars for raising a knife to the Red Woman. And so I think Davos is easily the most interesting / charismatic / compelling of any of the characters I think that we see on Dragonstone, particularly this season. But I don't know that there's not a ton, I think, of plot movement on this front overall. Like, it's Stannis just kind of being very Stannis and stoic, and Iron Throne's mine by right, but I'll get there eventually, I suppose. And and then Melisandre is looking about blood magic. We bring Gendry into the fold at one point, and Davos eventually kind of lets him go. But I think Davos is the most. I think it's interesting that Davos is strong in his convictions. He consistently challenges both Stannis and Melisandre on both of what they're trying to do. He even especially when he lets Gendry go and he doesn't deny it. He's like, I'm trying to do the right thing. Even though I know that like I've put up some shady shit so far, but I'm like, that's a bridge too far. Like that's kind of where Davos is. Like, he's trying to be the mediating influence, and I think that that's what makes him interesting. Because in this world of people that are out to just fuck over other people for their own personal gain, Davos feels like he's like, well, we got to do this the right way, at least as much as possible.
He's the Ned Stark portion of of Stannis.
And I think that's what makes him endearing to an audience, is that he is relatable in that way, because he's not just doing weird, perverse things. He's not driven
because he's entitled to it.
Power or his entitlement or anything like that. Like, yeah, he's someone that you respect him for what he does.
That's why Stannis respects him. That's why he punishes him for the things he does, and he's cold and he's callous. But at the end of the day, Stannis understands that he may not be going about the things the right way, and I think he knows he needs to hear it. And if it wasn't for Davos, he wouldn't hear it. And he would, I feel like he would be completely enveloped within, with that woman that's in his ear, which does some questionable shit.
Yeah. We also get introductions to, two characters, on Dragonstone. We see Selyse Baratheon, Stannis' wife. We see they have what appears to be a very cold, weird relationship. She's carrying, she's got like the stillborn children in like
jars.
Vats of jars. Yeah. So
it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. But we also meet Shireen, who is just like the sweetest little girl, and really seems to love her father and seems to care about Davos a lot. And she's young enough and innocent enough that she's kind of detached from any real moral quandaries, I think, that everyone else on Dragonstone is facing. But we do see that there's a genuine connection between her and Stannis. See, there's again, that genuine connection between her and Davos. She seems like she's the one thing that has the potential to humanize Stannis.
Yeah.
Like to bring him away from, like, Stannis almost feels like a man too far gone at this point in some ways. Like he's basically saddled himself to the Red God and whatever that entails, and it's just like, well, whether or not, I mean, I guess he kind of sees he sees victories in the flames and stuff like that, so he kind of it almost seems like he also himself still personally buys into it, at least enough that he's willing to go through with everything that he's willing to go through with. But I feel like Shireen is kind of this interesting potential wrench in that we don't really see that anything like that in this season particularly, but I just see it as like the one aspect, like him, where I guess Davos and Shireen is like, those are the two things that create this potential to, I guess, quote unquote, redeem Stannis, from doing some pretty heinous shit, like
Davos is locked up, right? I have to try to force myself to remember.
Yeah, he's locked up for most of the season.
And she teaches him how to read.
That's right.
And that's incredibly touching.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really, really good, I don't know, it was a really good touch. There's a lot of really good touches, just like little sweet little things that happen. She's a really good character. I really like her character. Stannis' daughter.
I agree. I agree. But I don't have much else to say on Dragonstone.
No, there wasn't a lot that was happening. I tell you what,
it seems like maybe they're sowing seeds for things to come, but not a lot of payoff, I think, overall there. So let's go up to the north. You want to go up to the north? The north?
Yeah, a lot of shit happened in the north.
We've got I think a couple different big threads happening up there. So do you want to start with Bran? Or do you
want to... we can start with Bran. I really enjoy Bran stuff because up until this point, all our magic is red magic, right?
Red magic?
Yeah, you got the red god magic. You got Thoros Amir, you've got Mesalandre or whatever, but then there's also Bran in the north. He's able to see through the eyes of his wolf.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we get Bran with Osha and Osha. Is it Osha?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
The wildling.
Yeah, Osha and Hodor and his little brother Rickon.
Hodor.
Yeah, and they're venturing north, and up in the woods they meet little Jojen Mira Reed, and Jojen is a green seer,
and
yes. He gets Bran gets introduced. Well, all the characters really get introduced into this world this magic that has believed to have been passed. It was recognized in thousands of years before of the children of the forest and the old gods in the north, and then the first men came and they chopped down all the trees and everything else, and now we get introduced to Jojen and Mira Reed, and you also get introduced into what are they called? What is Bran? What can he do? He's a warg. Yes, you can see through the eyes of animals, and there's a whole nother dynamic of magic in this world, a magic that's long been forgotten, and it's super. I find this magic far more interesting than the red magic. That's my own 2 cents, though, and I think that Jojen tries to teach Bran on the ways of warging because for some reason he's familiar, probably because he's a green seer. I think he can see into the past and he can see a little bit into the future. Isn't that right? And
right, yeah.
And so he's far more familiar with those practices than Bran is. Bran only knows that he dreams of being a wolf, and he doesn't know how to quite interpret it. And I don't know, it's just so really fucking cool. Mira and Osha don't get along, and they're kind of shits to each other. And Hodor's kind of just Hodoring around, which is
Hodor.
That's it.
Hodor.
Yeah. So what else do you got on that? Elaborate. Let me hear your opinions. Let me hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line of it's fucking cool is about right. This is another one I think that for the lore aspects of it is interesting. I think it's another part of the season that's largely set up for potential things to come, and we get the introduction of Jojen Mira Reed, so we get some new characters kind of added in there, and eventually we see the separation of Bran and Rickon, towards the end of the season.
And that was pretty sad.
And it was a really sad moment. And Rickon's just like, man, like, I don't remember how old he's supposed to be in this show. I think he's still younger in the books, but like, he's so detached from everything at this point. Like, Yeah, but because he's so young, like it's a really sad moment, that I feel like he's someone that still doesn't quite fully understand what's going on, and he just wants to be with his brother. And Bran is now getting old enough to the point where he kind of realizes maybe he has a greater purpose, or maybe he needs to find answers to the questions that he has, and so he is willing to kind of endanger himself and and go beyond the wall to find his answers. But it comes at the cost of, parting ways with his brother and putting him and, basically entrusting his life to someone that, Osha, who I think, obviously they seem to trust her pretty well at this point, but, it's still fucking dire straits for the Starks overall. Like, none of them are really still sitting pretty, so
they're sitting in fucking rough shape, man. They're sitting in the woods.
So even though he escaped, from under the grasp of Theon at Winterfell, it's not like he's standing, he's not like he's in a castle at Winterfell having a grand old time, you know what I mean? So
he works into fucking Hodor.
That's a legit fucking moment right there. Some pretty intense
point,
shit.
It's called out that, listen, Bran, you're not like fucking, people beyond the wall, and people can warg into like animals and shit, but you just warged into a fucking human, calmed him down and stuff.
And Osha, who is someone that has been around wargs, is clearly shook by what she has just seen. So that that's what I love about this show is it seeds different things throughout of just slightly weird things. It's all this big political drama for the most part, but then you got Bran warging into Hodor, you got Beric Dondarrion getting resurrected multiple times, you got shadow babies in season 2, you got fucking White Walkers and Whites, there's these things that just like the lore just kind of gradually builds up on itself in such really fucking cool ways,
Yeah,
it's the theme of this episode is fucking cool, but
that's it.
It's sowing the seeds, for really, really interesting things, and I think for a lot of it, I think there ends up being payoff to it, and some, whether it's good or bad or whatever, it's really flagging a lot of stuff to the audience, saying like, hey, pay attention. I feel like for the most part, especially in these early seasons, they don't just plant shit. They don't plant flags in the ground for no fucking reason. You know what I mean? Like, it really is there to kind of build the world, build lore in interesting ways, but also because it has consequence in the future, because it's
greater
going to mean something. Right. So, and there's a lot of that going on in the season of just a lot of just like, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Yes, it is. So that's kind of where I am with Bran's side of the storyline. It's
you also get a little bit more of Osha too. She her character gets a little bit more involved, and why she's south of the wall, and why she's so quick to I don't know why she. I feel like why she's. You get a little bit more to it whenever homeboy dies up there in Winterfell. Season 2, it was real sad.
Maester Luwin?
Yeah, Maester Luwin, and he kind of entrusts her to take care of the boys, and that was a really touching moment.
Yep.
But you can kind of see she's a lot more. And you probably knew she was a lot more up until that point, but it's really driven home, I think, whenever she has to separate from Bran, and she entrusts Bran into with Jojen and Mira as they venture further into the north.
Yeah, it's quite the journey for her character from where we saw her, in season 1, So, yeah. Well, elsewhere in the north, some things are happening over at the Dreadfort.
Oh no.
Theon Greyjoy is not having a good go of it. Let's put it that way.
He's not having a good time. As far as my notes go, on this topic, I have quote unquote sadistic fuck written down. That's all I have is sadistic fuck. I think that may have been in reference to Ramsay Snow. I
think so. So Ramsay Snow, the bastard son of one Roose Bolton. Clearly shittiness seems to run in the family. Yeah, I mean, this interestingly, I'm surprised that pretty much the whole season is Theon just getting tortured in various ways. There's the pretend escape, and then it's just like JK gotcha, and then there's the
that was so bad. Don't get me wrong, he also gets his dick cut off, which is that's pretty fucking rough.
Well, I should say so, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. But, he physically tortures him, and that's one thing. Don't get me wrong. Okay, getting your dick and balls cut off, that's pretty rough, especially when you got these two beautiful women grinding up on you. Of course, I don't know, I've been hung up on a fucking, X thing for however long I've been hung up on this X thing, right? I don't know how quick I'd be to smash. I feel like I probably not want to smash at that point. Fuck you, just get me the fuck out of here. I don't think I want to smash right next to my cross thing. But anyways, I digress. At one point though, it's so I was really impacted more by him escaping only to be brought back by his captor and brought back to the same room where he's getting fucking tortured. That is really fucking bad. That is so bad. And yeah, that was the really, you think he's getting out because you don't know who the fuck this guy is.
Yeah, that literally takes until episode 10 before they actually totally reveal that particular sadistic fuck is none other than Ramsay Snow.
Yeah,
which we know that, certainly having seen the show. We know what's going on, but I don't think I remembered the full extent of it. Maybe
no, I didn't remember the full extent of it. But when it was revealed, it's like, oh man, this guy is twisted. He's so twisted, And then it's really. I mean,
right ain't over yet, my man.
If he's not, if he's really twisted, it's no wonder where he learned his twistedness from. It's no wonder why what's his face is murdering people at their weddings. They're just the Boltons.
The Lannisters send their regards.
Yeah, the Boltons are fucked up. Fuck those guys. How did an fucking honorable man like Ned Stark allow fucking Boltons who have flayed men on their flags to be?
Well, they haven't done that in a while, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
yeah, our ancestors did it a couple thousand years ago. It's not a big deal. We don't do that sort of thing anymore.
Man.
But we have it on our fucking flag. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
That's not suspicious at all.
Jesus Christ, man. That is some rough. They are some rough fucking people, dude. The torture, I guarantee you'll have me screaming you want me to chop off your finger. And he's fucking flaying the skin off of his finger and picking out his nails and shit.
That was fucking brutal.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. So brutal. You have in the notes here, Theon/Shriek /Shriek. I mean, he totally fucking breaks this dude down.
And it's crazy too, because I feel like we spent season 2 talking about fuck Theon, and Theon did some horrible fucking things in season 2 particularly.
He did.
But he didn't deserve this. I guess in this world, you could say maybe a quick death would probably be a mercy for what Theon did, but this is worse. And that's why he's subjected to this
what's interesting? I don't mean to draw politics into this, but when I see this, I think of what's that, Guantanamo Bay. You see people that do, people do really bad shit, and then you think they're getting tortured. It's are they cutting off their dick and shit in there, and then letting them think they escape, and all this other stuff, and then calling them Reek, and then they're changing their names? What the fuck's Guantanamo Bay? They need to shut that shit down. It's probably bad.
If there is any,
that's a joke.
I don't think there's any.
There's
no public record of that happening anywhere in Gitmo or any sort of black site. But
sorry about that.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that our nation is not doesn't have the most stellar record either.
We're not talking about it.
I don't know for a nation full of Ramsay Snows, but yes. Regardless, yeah. He gets broken down. He accepts the name Reek in some ways, or at least he tacitly accepts it by saying that's his name by the end of it. So we see that Yeah, Theon is broken, but maybe hope is not lost.
He was broken. To be fair, I feel like he was broken at the end of season 2. I think at least at the end of season 2. Like, he knew that he had done a lot of questionable things, and he knew that, you know...
Well, but then he doubled down on it.
He did double down on it, but he's always one of those characters that rode the fence. You know, I feel like Game of Thrones is characters built on polarization. They're all polarized in such a way, where Theon kind of walked a line, and then he fell down the line of just shittiness. And then now he's in fucking hell. Like he's you know, I don't know. You got good people getting their heads cut off and everything else, and you got bad people getting killed and everything. But Theon is just he's in a completely different area. It's rough. Theon's in a rough spot.
Yeah. But like I said, maybe hope is not lost. We finally go back to the Iron Islands, the last episode of the season, and Yara seems to be mounting a rescue mission. So
yeah,
maybe
that's true.
Maybe.
Fuck you! It's your son. I'm gonna go get him. He's my brother.
Yeah, no, it's my brother. You know, so she's we'll see what happens with that.
That's an interesting thing too, though, because I mean, you can kind of see what the Iron Islands are made of. You know. You can kind of see that she goes against what her father says, and she says, "I'm just going to go do this." And ultimately, what's he going to do? Because that's the Iron Islands. You know what I mean? You kind of get a feeling of what that region is about. Which is interesting, because up at this point, you just think they're about raping and pillaging and taking what is yours and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? But there are people that are...
paying the iron price.
That's right. And they do what they think is... They do what they think is right, regardless of whatever somebody sitting on a throne thinks about it, which is interesting. And that was my take on her decision to go save them. So, anyways, moving on. Who else do we got to talk about?
We're gonna go behind. We're gonna go beyond the wall now. Again, a couple kind of divergences and storylines here. We can talk about Sam and Gilly.
Okay.
Sam and Gilly.
So interesting enough. I'm gonna cut you off again.
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of thoughts. The only note that I have in this season regarding Sam and Gilly is Sam is a wizard to Gilly, and then heart emoji. Yeah, so that's my only one. I tried to look up a GIF because I was going to share it on the Facebook. I wanted to find a GIF that said, "Find somebody that looks at you the way Gilly does to Sam." And that, I don't know, man. I really like their dynamic. If we're talking about Sam.
Yeah. Well, we are talking about Sam, so yes, it's appropriate. I think those two characters together are really great, and this is something I think they sowed the seeds for their relationship in season 2 when they kind of initially meet on the first time through Craster's Keep, and then here things kind of pop off in a big way. So Craster's Keep becomes the site for a mutiny. So Craster, I think, gets a dagger through the jaw and brain. Well deserved, I would say, for all Craster. But Lord Commander Mormont also meets a similar fate, unfortunately.
Yeah,
at the hands of it's how many years could you expect the Night's Watch to go on with largely rapists and criminals and stuff like that, and it's just like before enough of them band together for something like this. And I think it was kind of spurned on by the fact that Craster was obviously an evil fuck that wasn't feeding them, more than whatever shit that he was giving them. So it was more like, hey, I'm fucking going to starve to death, or I'm going to murder these people so I can not starve to death. And I think it was a lot of that. I think that kind of prompted that, but it was a pretty pretty crazy moment, overall. Just like when the chaos kind of unfolds, and Sam is just like, I got to get the fuck out of here, and he, he seizes the moment to be able to take Gilly with him, and little Sam, as well, and I think we largely, I guess, kind of focus on Sam for the rest of the season, and then kind of leave Craster's Keep in disarray where it is there. But just the actual moment of that was just really, they said, just very kind of chaotic the way that it kind of unfolded.
Interesting
Sam and Gilly,
question. I got an interesting question for you. Why wouldn't an army of Night's Watch? Why wouldn't they have taken Castor's cabin, or whatever the fuck it's called?
Because they used it for intel on the wildlings. He was a wildling himself, so he knew about kind of the going-ons of, say, Mance Rayder and everyone.
Okay, they just used it for intel.
So that's why I think they permitted him, being an absolute shitbag that gave away his boys to the White Walkers and raped
which they didn't know
daughters and stuff.
Well, no, I guess he knew about them.
No, they didn't know about that.
Yeah, he did know about that, which was a poor decision. But I don't know. It's an interesting thing.
It's not the first poor decision that's been made in this realm. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's true. That was really shitty.
Yes. So Sam and Gilly do fortunately manage to escape from that.
Castor's Keep. That's it.
Yeah, Craster's Keep is interesting. But as they're making their way back to Castle Black, I think there's probably one pivotal moment, which you just mimed for me on the camera. Our listeners can't see what you did, but yes, Sam, the Slayer of White Walkers. That's some badass shit that you probably didn't. Well, I don't think anyone sees that coming, but you see, he has a little of something. He's got some protective instincts to him, and we see the value of dragon glass, of course. I don't know, that was a fucking cool moment. I think we talked about it in season 2 how there's the White Walker. I think, is it like literally the last scene, like Sam's shitting his pants behind a rock, and the Walker just looks at him and is just like, whatever, and like keeps moving on, like almost like he perceived Sam to not be a threat at all. And I think even like the beginning of this season picks up with like Sam just like running for his life, and I think he runs into Whites, but then he's kind of saved by Mormont and company and stuff like that. So like we never really seen Sam do anything other than he reads his books. He's a nice guy. He means well, obviously, but
I read it in a book.
Well, he is a wizard, so
it's true. Yeah, but he stabs that fucking guy in the back of the shoulder. He does do that.
But you really see Sam kind of come into his own, and he starts developing this bond with Gilly and little Sam. And it's really touching. It's really heartfelt. Like Sam, I think, again, probably one of our favorite characters stemming from season 1, and it's cool to see him get some major play here, and major play independent of most of the other characters. He's away from John. He's pretty much on his own, and Sam's just being Sam. And kind of Sam's fighting his way through this fucking world and doing it, successfully. Like that's fucking cool, Again, to name a thing in this season that's fucking cool. I think Sam fucking killing White Walkers and protecting Gilly and a little baby and shit, and making his way back to Castle Black, like some pretty badass shit,
Yeah, and
good on you, Sam.
There was a quote. I can't remember. Maybe you'll remember. I didn't write it down in my notes. But at one point he says, "If we can't, the wall came up to protect people." And if we can't protect the people beyond it, or the people, he says something about along the lines of protecting the people beyond the wall just as much as the people south of the wall. Do you know what I'm talking about? Vaguely. Yeah.
So I don't know the quote, but yeah.
Yeah. It was really good. That was a really good line. And it really goes to talk about why they're there, because I mean, I feel like so much you get fixated on people and where they're from and everything else. That wall is there not to keep wildlings out, but to protect people from the things beyond the wall.
From the horrors that lurk beyond the wall, right? Yeah.
Right. So if you can't, and I think that's a seedling for things to come, with the idea of the wall and the principle of the wall and the Night's Watch. They're not there to keep the free folk out of the Southern Lands. They're there to fucking keep the zombies and shit out of the South, and future seeds, man. It's really good. But there's more going on beyond the wall.
There is indeed. Well, we see some, I don't want to say horror, but we see certainly things that are lurking beyond the wall, like fucking giants.
Like fucking giants, yes, for one, and Jack Sparrow for two. There's a dude that looks oddly like Jack Sparrow.
Is it the warg?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That dude's a dick.
No. Well, he's not. That actor is literally part of Jack Sparrow's crew in Pirates of the Caribbean. I shit you not.
Do what?
Yeah, he's one of Jack Sparrow's crewmen in Pirates. So,
oh, that's hilarious. I literally have Jack Sparrow as an asshole in my notes.
But what does the bird see over the castle?
Fuck that guy. Guy's an asshole.
Yes,
he gets his though.
He gets his. He does indeed. Sometimes characters that are shitty get what's coming to them, but not always. So yes, Jon Snow is he's beyond the wall, ingrained into the wildling camp. He meets the king beyond the wall, Mance Rayder.
He meets that dude with the fucking bones and shit.
Lord of Bones. Yes, yeah. And he meets Tormund Giantsbane, lieutenant of Mance, and initially he's proven his worth. He's proven he's not a crow anymore, and he's trying to earn the trust of the wildlings. And it's really interesting to kind of to see Jon kind of go through this kind of infiltration mission, while at the same time finding himself actually developing a real emotional connection with Ygritte, which kind of burgeons in pretty big ways throughout the season, perhaps in one cave where he does something with his mouth that she found quite pleasurable.
Down there, yeah.
No. But again, Jon Snow, easily fan favorite, one of our favorite characters, I would say. Continues to get a lot of great character stuff to play off of in this season in particular. Again, like the stuff with Mance and the initial kind of the initial initiation, I guess, of basically proving that he is someone that shouldn't be killed immediately because he's just a crow trying to get information for the Night's Watch or whatever. And this is the first time we actually see Mance himself, who's been talked about, I think maybe since season 1 as the King Beyond the Wall. And we see kind of what he actually has at his disposal. We see he's kind of an unassuming man, but we see that, he's got fucking giants, he's got a big ass fucking army, he's got people that are fiercely loyal to him in this way that has never been seen for the free folk. Like it's
what's never been seen there. It hasn't been seen south of the wall. Every single person criticizes their king south of the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they got people you got Karstark criticizing Jon Snow, or not Jon Snow, but Robb Stark.
Mm-hmm.
You got
right.
You got Davos criticizing his king. You got
everyone criticizing Joffrey because he's a fucking shitbag
bitch. Yeah, right. So everybody's doing questionable things, but the only person that has unwavering loyalty is the man beyond the wall, and it's really the only one that's united against one significant purpose. Because you see what he's up against, and you can kind of get a vibe for what they are up against, and it's really interesting. I think it's a really interesting thing.
And it's interesting because he himself is one of those Southerners. He's a former man of the Night's Watch. So to see him have that sort of sway on these people, really, really interesting. I'm going to light the biggest fire the North has ever seen.
And he's like you said, he's a Southerner. He was a man of the Night's Watch. He understands the purpose of the wall.
Right. Yeah. He sees the big picture, and I think maybe that's what brings them together because he's able to show them like what's really at stake, you know?
Right. It's not about a wall. It's not about the South. It's not about the North. It's about the shit that's happening up there.
It's not about fucking stupid, oh, I don't want to marry this person. Oh, my life is horrible. Oh.
Another point worth noting is Ned Stark's name carries weight beyond the wall.
That's true. Yeah, that's interesting.
I feel like a large part that's why Jon Snow has his life is because his father was Ned Stark, and beyond the wall. I mean, the names of kings and shit they don't mean anything, but Ned Stark's does, and I think that's and I can't quite grasp why that is, but it's worth noting that the wildlings know of Ned Stark. They respect Ned Stark. The king beyond the wall recognizes and respects Ned Stark, and ultimately Jon Snow can kind of latch on to that respect and I mean, ultimately gain his life, I think, because of his father.
But then I feel like it doesn't hurt that he killed Corn Halfhand.
It does. It doesn't. But you know, if you would have said my lord father is Tywin Lannister, I don't give a fuck about Tywin Lannister.
Oh, he's already dead. He's missing his head. Where'd it go?
Right. Yeah. Nobody gives
it's on the ground.
Shit. But Ned Stark, this is the bastard son of Ned Stark. Oh, okay. Well, we'll keep him alive. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think that was. I think it's interesting. But
yeah. So I think again, Jon and Ygritte, I think, is probably the heart of what his character goes through. You know, the development of that relationship. Eventually, the end when he realizes he has to go back to Castle Black, and that has an obvious moment of tension between them, where he literally gets filled with a couple 3 arrows to be exact.
That was pretty.
And you see how much impact that has on her as well to have to do that. Yeah, you know, it's not a lot of happy endings, but I guess at the same time they both escape with their lives. So, you know, I guess we can be okay with that, right? For now, you know, I mean, we'll see what happens with them next, I suppose.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you think Daenerys Stormborn, the breaker of change?
I would say chains. Breaker of change. Is that the Sean Connery version? Daenerys Targaryen, the breaker of change. Mother of dragons.
She is ultimate badass in season 3.
Dany gets her fucking due in season 3.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, season 2 was a big fucking drag for Dany. Season 3 was the opposite. She fucking owned it in season 3, and it was awesome. I agree. Yeah. I mean, she's in Slaver's Bay. Basically, I guess she goes through a couple cities in season 3. She goes through Astapor and Yunkai, freeing all the slaves from their servitude in some pretty fucking spectacular ways, I would say.
When she liberates Astapor, dude, I got goosebumps.
Well, that's when she kind of tricks. Well, that's when she gets the Unsullied, right? She's like, the Unsullied are my command, and you know, she's like, he's like, yeah, the fucking dragon's not listening to me, and she's like, fucking Jacaris, bitch. And boom, she fucking dragon roasts that dude. But yeah, and I
she
guess
rattles off High Valyrian. She knows.
Yeah, she's like,
language.
I knew what you're saying this whole time. You fucking bitch. Fucking played your ass.
Man.
Played your ass for a fool.
Goodness.
Yeah, that was pretty damn good. I agree with that.
And High Valyrian, holy shit, for like a language that's like been developed for television. High Valyrian sounds fucking good.
How many fucking languages did they make up for the show? They already had Dothraki from season 1.
Dothraki sounded good too, right? But
yeah.
High Valyrian in particular just sounds so eloquent and just sounds fucking good.
Yeah. Yeah, Dany has a lot of amazing moments in this particular season. It's you look to A Storm of Swords and it's like, okay, you know, but it's like, man, really, especially coming off season 2 where like fucking nothing happened. Like it's really, really interesting to see how much they leaned into her character and like giving her actual shit to do and you know, meaningful things to actually react to and stuff like that, and meeting new interesting characters. We, you know, fucking Sir Barristan Selmy makes his way back into the story, you know, becoming part of her Queensguard. Like, that's awesome. That's an awesome payoff to like him getting fucked over by little shit Joffrey in season 1. You know, now he's fucking traveled across the sea to support someone else's claim to the throne. Like, that's a pretty big fucking turn of events from being the Kingsguard. Jorah, you know, Jorah continues to pine over Khaleesi. Missandei, first introduction to Missandei, and she's great here. And then we see immediately that Dany respects her, you know, through, you know, while she's enslaved. She sees that like Missandei is really like trying to like, okay, this guy's an absolute shitbag. How do I do this in a way that's respectful to
because she can understand both languages, she
right?
can see, yeah.
You know, and Dany obviously sees, like, she immediately sees kind of the worth in Missandei, and there's like a really great exchange. I don't remember the exact dialogue, but it's I don't remember exactly why she says it, but Missandei says "Vala Morghulis," you know, all men must die, and Daenerys retorts like, "But we're not men," you know, and it's a really
and she kind of smiles a little bit, yeah. It
was a really great moment between those two, and Grey Worm, the Unsullied in general is the first introduction. We finally see Daenerys acquiring an actual army. You know, now she has an actual force to command in the
loyal
Unsullied.
army.
A loyal army.
That
you know, not subject to the whims like the Dothraki were. You know, a group that are fiercely loyal. You know, it would seem to Dany at this point, and we meet Grey Worm, you know, the kind of chosen leader of the Unsullied, and we meet Dario Naharis.
That fucking guy. Who that actor will not return. I hate to spoil you.
Yeah, I put Dario Naharis version 1.0
that's it.
and the episode script because we'll talk about it in when we do season 4, but it's really weird how they handled that character as a side. We'll come back to it for sure, but it's really weird how they handled the character. I like him in this season, I will say. You know, he's kind of like he's like a smarmy prick, like, but he plays that well, and he's charming and everything like that. And it's interesting seeing like Ed Skrein here after we've seen him in like fucking Deadpool and other stuff where he's
it's the same actor.
He was in Alita recently too.
He was that fucking the weird guy.
He was the smarmy prick cyborg in Alita, you know. So maybe he has a type that he likes to play, but I thought I liked him here, So in general, like Dany, so much more to do. And if I had one complaint, and it's more of a general complaint about the season and not a Dany specific complaint, it's that the climactic moment of this season feels like a letdown compared to previous seasons, where it's, Dany's crowd surfing and Misa, 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 like that whole sequence in Yunkai, outside of Yunkai, where she's freed the slaves there. And it's like season 1 ended with
her birth of the dragons.
The dragon. Season 2 ended with the White Walkers like kind of going past Sam, and this one ends with Dany crowd surfing. And it's like, okay, like it didn't feel any more triumphant. It didn't feel any more triumphant than what, like, the Dracarys moment from earlier in the season felt more triumphant in some ways. You know what I mean?
It did. But
it's a great moment for her, but as like the last moment of the season, it didn't feel like the holy shit thing that we'd kind of come to expect at this point. I think it's a great character moment. At the same time, I don't know what you'd put in its place. Like, I thought about that, and I'm like, I criticize it, but I'm like, realistically, I don't. Well, I know what I would put there, but that's neither here nor there. But
what would you put there?
It's something that references what we talked about previously, but then decided we weren't going to talk about on the episode. So we'll talk about it off air. If anyone cares enough to know what I'm talking about, email us, watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. So, a minor complaint. I said it's a good character moment, just not I think like
her
the best way
followers
to end the season.
She finally has loyal followers that aren't going to go anywhere, and that's I mean, it's a huge gain, huge gain. So yeah. Congratulations to her. She built her. She finally has an army.
She's getting some shit done. Yes, absolutely. Good for Daenerys Targaryen, the breaker of chains / change.
The Mother of Dragons.
Mother of Dragons, Queen of the Andals in the first. I don't know. I don't know what all her titles are at this point. She gets more. Spoilers.
It's pretty impressive though.
So let's close our massive spoiler coverage for season 3 with King's Landing. Of course,
King's Landing,
center of things.
Lots
of stuff going on in King's Landing. What do you?
So our season quote is chaos isn't a pit, chaos is a ladder.
Chaos is a ladder.
Yes.
Okay.
Courtesy of Peter Baelish, Littlefinger.
We have a reveal to a character in King's Landing, who is total Queen Bey, total the bayest of queens. What? The bayest of queens, the queenest of bays? What? I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say.
I feel like the bayest of queens sounds better. I think it's
bayest of queens?
like logically more appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. And she has a quote. And it says, "Sometimes severity is the price we pay for greatness." And I really like that quote too. I feel like that's a real good one. As she's trying to win over the little shit,
Joffrey.
That's
Joffrey.
Right. So that's how I guess we can kind of kick off that area. Is sometimes severity is the price we pay for greatness. I really like that quote.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I mean, the Tyrells get a lot of play in this season, particularly.
They
do. You know, I believe this is the introduction to Lady Olenna Tyrell, the matriarch of the family, who is fucking awesome. She's amazing. She fucking owns the screen anytime she's interacting with anyone. Really
excellent character.
Yeah, fucking awesome. You know, and Marjorie clearly learned from her. You know, in the way that she knows
play the game.
She knows how to play the game. I mean, so much of the season is basically about Cersei not wanting to cede control to Marjorie or any of the Tyrells for that matter, and as a result, you know, as a result of Marjorie clearly knowing how to prey on Joffrey's baser instincts and win him
quote
over
unquote
and control him in
I got
whatever
many
way she can.
Quote unquote, good. I wish you knew how to manipulate him, and that's what Tywin says to Cersei in regards to Marjorie. Marjorie's manipulation of
yeah.
That's good.
So yeah. I mean, I think Olenna and Marjorie are probably the most noteworthies of the Tyrells. I mean, Loras is kind of just hanging out there. Old Danny Rand. It's weird because I actually still I see him as Loras when I watch the show, and then I'm like, fuck, it is Danny Rand, isn't it? You know, I have to take a step back sometimes. So, he looks different. I guess maybe that's what it is. But
could you imagine? I got another note. I got all sorts of notes on King's Landing. One of my notes is strong Tywin and Tyrell old matriarch. That's what I have. Could you imagine being the generation before what we have, where you have Tywin Lannister in his prime, you've got Tyrell in her prime, you have Ned Stark in his prime, and imagine the landscape of that world versus what we have now, where where they're all fighting against the Targaryen, the Mad King. It must have been a really, really unique time where all these people were forged in. You know, you can kind of gain a respect for the people that they are because of the landscape that they were, like I said, they're forged in. Does it make sense?
Yeah, well, they're not a bunch of shits like they are now. Let's put it that way.
And it's interesting because the people that are enduring in this world right now, and the problems that they're going through and everything else, and where the series ends up, you can only imagine the kind of people that are going to be forged in the world that they're in now. You know what I mean? If you have a Tyrell who's awesome at playing that game and she's just an old woman, you know, you have Tywin Lannister who's just a cold, conniving old man. You have Bolton who's just a terrible fucking person, and then you have Ned Stark who he was in his position based off his honor and everything else. You know, you got Stannis, and you have all these people that existed and they survived in this world. Now you have people like Arya Stark who's getting shit on. You have Sansa who's getting shit on. You have all these people that are still alive, but they're having to persevere through the world that is Westeros. And I think it kind of paints a unique picture of the people that come out, the people that survive and come out of those problems. They're very interesting after.
Well, they're going to have certainly a unique perspective if they can make it to a point where they're able to express their perspective on how things should be. So yeah. So King's Landing, I mean, there's obviously multiple kind of storylines that swirl around it. Tywin, we talked about a little bit. You know, I think he's assumed being king of the hand of the king in this season, and he is, for all intents and purposes, the king. You know, even when he's questioned on it. You know,
oh man,
the king is tired. See him to his chambers. You know.
Oh man, I think that's probably the point we're talking about, where little shithead was questioning his grandfather. Well, you just came in at the end of the battle, blah 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 blah, and everybody would just like kind of looked at the king like, "Are you fucking crazy?"
There's so much fucking contempt in his eyes.
Oh man. Oh.
He's like, if this motherfucker wasn't the king, his head would be on a spike right now. Like, oh man.
I think there's one point too where he marches up on the Iron Throne. I'm counseling you now, bitch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh man. But the biggest one is when he's in the small council chamber and he's talking shit to him. And everybody in that small council chamber just fucking pivots over and looks at Joffrey and like looks at him like you're fucking stupid. You know? Yeah. That was a major moment in Tywin, and as far as for me anyways, the kind of respect that he commends. He
seems to be the only person that is actually able to put Joffrey in his place successfully.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, like Tyrion tries it multiple times, but it's usually like, oh, it was just a joke, Your Grace, or something like that. Whereas Tywin's like, fuck you, you little shit. You'll do what the fuck I say. I'll counsel you when I goddamn please, motherfucker. Like that's Tywin. Like. Things worked out pretty well for Tywin here. He was the king, and not much went wrong for him, really.
To quote my notes, "Fuck me, Lord Tywin, total boss."
Yeah, Tywin fucking owned it. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, Joffrey is still managing to thrive despite being the absolute fucking worst. Is he the worst? All right, question for you: who's worse? Joffrey or Littlefinger?
At this point,
Joffrey, right?
Yeah, Joffrey's the worst.
I think so too. Like Littlefinger has really fucked it for us a couple times, but Joffrey is just the most insufferable piece of shit possible.
Littlefinger's tendrils, they run deep. You know what I mean? His roots run very, very. You don't quite know what he's up to, not just yet.
Yeah.
You do. You eventually find out what he's up to.
Well, we know that he's cozying up to Lysa Arryn. He's
that's right.
Going to become the Lord of the Vale, I guess. So yeah. So Tywin owning it, Joffrey getting away with owning it, sort of in a way. Cersei losing control is interesting. She has small victories, I think, and then how she's able to rebuff certain efforts by the Tyrells, but then she finds herself betrothed to Loras herself, which she's not too pleased with.
That's another one. That's another way he's total boss. He says you are going to marry him, and fucking Tyrion, you're going to marry her. That's just the way it is.
It's like we're playing the game of politics. Like here, like Sansa is going to be in, and she does end up being the key to the North. So we're gonna secure that. We're gonna secure fucking Highgarden. You know,
Suck
like
your
he's
shit up. This is
like
what we're
we're gonna
doing.
fucking capture every goddamn part of the country. You know, basically is basically what his plan is, and it's actually quite a good plan overall.
That's a pretty good plan. Yeah.
You know, and he doesn't give a fuck about the feelings of his kids. You know, he definitely doesn't give a fuck about Tyrion. But he doesn't even respect Cersei. He really doesn't. Like Cersei tries so hard to get his respect, to make him believe that she is, you know, the most politically savvy of any of his children, the one most worthy of the legacy that he so desperately craves to craft out for them. But like, he's just like, I don't trust any of you fuckers. Like, I'm going to do it my way because you guys don't. You've had chances
you
and you
clearly
fucked
don't
it.
understand, right?
And it's interesting because like I could totally get the argument like Cersei's fucked it because Joffrey's a fucking loose cannon. But like, it's so crazy. Like his disdain for Tyrion is so great that he just completely overlooks everything about Blackwater and everything that happened as a result of that. Like he's just like, you're just a little shit. Doesn't like, yeah, you know, maybe you had some sort of part to play, but I'm not going to acknowledge that because fuck you. You know, you killed my wife. Like that's Tywin's perspective, you know, and it's like some pretty fucking deep
he
seated
does
hatred right there.
ultimately. Yeah, he does.
He's
You
like,
know,
my
I-
mercy
I-
to you is I didn't fucking kill you immediately when you were born. Like
He
that's
does say that. It was pretty.
that's my
fucking
mercy.
cruel.
Like Jesus.
But at the end of the day, he does the same thing. The only one that he doesn't, I feel like the only one he doesn't completely obliterate is Jaime consistently. You know, because he does shit on Cersei too. You know,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He doesn't fucking respect her at all.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't respect any of them. But all of his kids are kind of like fucking shits, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, in a way, in their own way, I would
in their
say.
own way, you know. You know, for even though Tyrion does good, he does have a history of alcoholism and whores and everything else, which does bring a lot of disrespect to the family name, you know. And he doesn't appreciate Tyrion, but at the same time, he does award him with the North. Does award him with Warden of the North, which is, I guess, not Warden of the North. How does that work?
No, it'd be the kid. He wants Tyrion to impregnate Sansa. That's all he wants Tyrion to do.
That's all
At
he
which
wants him to
point,
do. But
once the kid comes of age, then the kid will become the Warden of the North.
Up until that point,
until then, Roose Bolton will be the Warden of the North. That's right.
Yeah, that's kind of shit. All right.
So it's
never
not like
mind then.
Tyrion is magically given some position of power the way.
I got you. Okay.
Like when he was Hand of the King, he had legitimate power, and now all that's been kind of stripped away, and you know, none of his achievements have been recognized in any sort of way. So it's like, just. Well, I mean, speaking
and
of
I tell you
Tyrion,
what makes it worse is Joffrey thinks he's the fucking. I was the savior of the city. Blah 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 blah. Oh man, Joffrey, fucking Joffrey.
He is the worst. As much as we hate on Littlefinger, and maybe we'll continue to hate on Littlefinger, Joffrey is just the fucking worst. My God,
worst.
he is just the worst. And it's interesting because like he sucks a lot in season 1. But like season 3, Joffrey is a whole fucking different monster, you know?
Well, now
Like- like
now he's like a king for years.
Power
About
corrupts
a year.
absolutely. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Is that the saying? Like, man,
Didn't he shoot that lady on his bed?
yeah,
And-
yeah, he kills Ross.
Yeah, that's
Fucking
Jesus
crossbow.
Christ. Yeah, it's fucking terrible. And
Yeah.
you can see that he's just fucking weird, you know? He's like, oh, can you imagine pointing that crossbow at something and shooting it when he's with Marjorie? And Marjorie's like, yeah, I could totally envision shooting shit, you know? And she's all trying to be like, all manipulative and shit, you know? Man, she's total bae. She is total bae. Oh my goodness. I can't talk about Marjorie without saying bae. Lord have mercy. Woo!
You and your bays.
Queen bae.
So
yes.
so Tyrion.
Yes, Tyrion. Mhm.
Tyrion gets married in this season, doesn't he?
He does. And the little fucker pulls the stool out, won't let him
Yeah.
step on the stool, you cocksucker. And
Yeah.
you can see Tywin's like, why you shit, you know? When he drags the stool, drags it across, Tywin just glares
you
at
know
him.
what we need? Because we needed a Jaime Lannister. We need a new Kingslayer. I think that's the solution. We need a new Kingslayer. Someone's just like, I'm tired of this little shit. Just fucking sword through the back. No problem. No problem. Fucking impale him. Oh, right in the middle of a fucking wedding. Yeah, that'll be good.
It's terrible. And I really like the part where they're at the wedding ceremony or whatever, and they were talking about dragging bringing Sansa. What's the deal with him terrorizing Sansa? Do you know? Is he just a fucking terrible? I mean, I know
think he's
terrible.
just a sadistic fucking little prick. I think it's. I don't know.
He really has it out for her so bad. Anyway, so they're at the wedding.
I guess probably because of the whole Ned Stark thing and just lording that over her is probably part of it, I would guess,
Yeah, I guess. I don't fucking know.
Maybe also lingering resentment from that, the Arya thing in season 1, and holding that over her because it's her sister or whatever,
I guess. It's fucking terrible to
also
watch,
because I think any attempt to understand Joffrey as a non-sociopath is misguided. So
that's true. But yeah, anyways, Tyrion stands up says all fucking, I don't know, he says something about, he stabs that knife in the table, and that was pretty, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely times where, like I said, it's time where Tyrion really is like, you know what, fuck you, little monster. You know, and in the moment you're like, yeah, fuck him, yeah, and you're like, oh wait, hold on, maybe don't. You might get fucking killed right now. This is Game of Thrones after all.
But every time he ever does that, I feel like he's protected by by anybody that has any sway. You know what I mean? Because everybody knows that Joffrey's a piece of shit. It happens consistently. Right. Which is really interesting. That nobody wants to respect Tyrion, but he's the only one that actively speaks out against the shit that he does. So,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, Sansa, obviously, same old story with Sansa. She just goes through new trials and tribulations, to say the least. She gets shit on at every turn possible, it seems. Even when she gets a brief moment of happiness where she thinks she's going to marry Loras, that's quickly dissuaded, and
Psych!
Now she's marrying Tyrion, who has been kind to her, but not exactly the man of her dreams, I wouldn't say. A Lannister, and lots of things that she's not exactly game for, and
either is Tyrion. He's got
and Tyrion himself finds himself in a bit of a quandary where obviously he's very much in love with Shay, who he found a position for as Sansa's handmaiden, so that evokes a very interesting dynamic where she is directly visible. She's very much a part of their actual relationship, as a married couple, and that creates a very, very, very big deal for all the characters, I think, emotionally. I mean,
because they all end up caring for Sansa as well,
Right, and Tyrion in his own way absolutely does care for her, just not as a husband, he respects her, and he sees the way that she's been treated for years now, and he's just like, he does what little I suppose he can to preserve her honor and protect her as much as possible, but he doesn't want to be in this position any more than she does, and
sleeps on the couch on his wedding day.
Yeah, so Tyrion obviously, he does what he can, but he's effectively powerless for this season. Right. He had his moment as Hand of the King, and
he did a really good job of it.
Saved the city, really, and this is his fucking reward, and it's just like just another character getting shat on in fucking Game of Thrones. What's new? So, special shout out to Podrick Payne, who is apparently
for free.
quite good at quite popular with the ladies, shall we say. So I thought that was fun. I don't think that was in any of the books. So I feel like that was just kind of a fun joke that they threw in the show, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of fun because they come back to it a couple times in like more subtle ways after that. Pretty good. I thought
It's pretty good. Yes.
And last but not least, Littlefinger and Varys. You know, we talked about the chaos quote. We get some more of their interactions, which of course are always a pleasure to see them unfold. But I think Varys in particular has his very big scene where he's talking to Tyrion about how he was castrated, and he's unpackaging something. We don't know what it is, and it turns out it's the man that tormented him as a youth and made him a eunuch, as he is today. And I thought that was a really great scene,
as they say.
Root and stem. That's right. So those two characters, interesting in their own ways for sure. Littlefinger is a massive shit. Varys I find to be largely likable. Like I think when he says that he serves the realm, it feels legitimate. Like he does feel like he is trying to do the most politically salient thing possible, and sometimes that doesn't always work. Sometimes he has to stand idly by while bad things happen around him because he's not in a position to do anything about it. But I find Varys to be a compelling character overall.
He's a macro player.
Like I feel like when you see where Varys stands on a particular issue, I think it kind of sheds some light on it in some way. Depending on what it is. I think it's interesting. I'd say
he's playing the game for a different reason, right? Like
right.
I feel like he's authentically. He's the most conniving. He's one of the most conniving people, I think. But he's like I said, he's doing it for a different reason. He's vaulted himself into this position from effectively nothing. But he's not someone I think that wants to sit on the Iron Throne. And I think that separates him from a lot of people is that he wants to see the right person sit on the Iron Throne. I think that's his biggest difference. And I think we can safely say it's probably not Joffrey that he feels is the correct contender for that position. But so well, I mean, that's a lot. We covered a lot. I think we've gone longer than any of our previous episodes. But season 3 had a lot of shit really contained within it. I have one last
shit.
note.
You got
one last
note? Okay. All right. Let's have it.
Didn't talk about it. And it was in regards to Brianna Tarth and Jaime Lannister.
Okay.
Really touching moment is when she held Jaime Lannister to his vows to take care of Arya and Sansa, get him back up to her brother.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And for the first time in 3 seasons, he's actually recognized as a knight and by his name. She calls him Sir Jaime, and I thought that was really touching. And that's the last of my notes, dude. I think we went on longer because I actually took concise notes. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should play everything off the cuff. I don't know.
That's okay. It's all right. I hope our listeners enjoyed maybe a more thorough discussion. I feel like organization-wise it worked out well, but maybe I'll listen back and feel differently. I'm not sure. We'll find out eventually. But it's a bonus episode. Who cares? I mean, we care to some extent, but we're just, we're drinking some beers. We're having fun, man. We're having fun. We're watching Game of Thrones. Like, you can't complain.
Can't complain.
I don't think. So, I mean, if you want to, you can send us an email, but it's fine.
I got a question for you.
Unless you want to. Yeah.
What's your favorite episode?
Well, I think it's The Rains of Castamere.
Okay.
The Red Wedding, because I think it's the most impactful episode in the entire season. Yeah. And probably to this show till this point. I would say special shout out to episode 4, which is when the mutiny happens at Craster's Keep. It's when Daenerys
you said episode 3?
4 is what is my honorable mention. Okay. That's where she gains control of the Unsullied and burns the fucking asshole alive, and frees all the slaves there. Because I felt like that almost felt like season finale-esque of like maybe like a season 1 type season finale. But episode 9 is just it's the most brutal episode to date for the show overall, and it's the most impactful, I think, as a result, while also having some other aspects to it, I think that are interesting as well. It advances some of the other plots as well, and then it just ends with that fucking horrifying note with the red wedding, and we talked about the pure silence. So I think episode 9 overall is what I would say. I don't know if I guess favorite is kind of I guess maybe that's different than the best. I think it's the best episode for sure. Favorite maybe goes to episode 4 because I feel like maybe it's like as a fan of the King of the North and such, like it's a heartbreaking episode, but I would be comfortable saying it's my favorite episode as well. So I don't know. What do you think? What do you have in mind?
I agree wholeheartedly with your shout out and with your pick. Reigns of Castamere is the most impactful thing I think I've ever watched on television, on a television show. But as far as like badass, like really cool moment and everything else, episode 4 is and now his watch is ended. That's that episode there. And that one right there is a really fucking good episode. So, shout out to number 4. Ultimately, though, Reigns of Castamere is probably my fave.
Yeah.
Not my fave.
Well, who won this season?
Okay.
Yeah, I understand. Who won the season? We're gonna do houses. Well, singular house. We're gonna do the house that won the season, and we're gonna do the individual that won the season.
Okay.
I think we're gonna agree.
You think so?
I'm making that bold proclamation right now. But I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay,
we'll
so
find
I'm gonna
out.
say that House Lannister won the house. They effectively have a much more methodical person in control of everything, with somebody that's capable of dialing in the actual quote unquote king. Homeboy's in control. Homeboy has eliminated the threat in the north. Homeboy has eliminated the threat to the east, being Stannis, and now he is marrying out his children to take control of the north and to take control of the south. And he's House Lannister is in control, very much in control of everything that's going on within the realm right now. So House Lannister won. Individual ranking, I would say Daenerys Stormborn has seized a huge position. She now has a very incredibly loyal army. She is slowly becoming a very recognizable king or queen to trifle with, and she is developing into a major player, I think. So I would say individually, I would say Daenerys is the individual winner. What about you? What do you say?
Well, we didn't agree.
Okay, what you got?
I agreed with you actually on House.
Okay.
Lannister, I think, is easily the winner here. I think they lost a couple cousins, but
They were fucking like 13-year-old boys that were like distantly related, right?
Like, I think that's like the only real losses you could probably count for the Lannisters overall for this season. Like they really cleaned house in a big way. And for the reasons you said in your house, I picked Tywin Lannister as the individual that won the season because he's the king.
Yeah,
he's
true.
the fucking king, And like, he's the one person that's found a way to shut Joffrey and his shit down for the most part, and he has played the Game of Thrones spectacularly. He's defeated Stannis in a way as of the end of season 2. He's now connived his way into eliminating the King of the North off the board. Robb Stark's off the board now. And now he's put himself into a position where he has the keys to the kingdom for the north and to the east with Highgarden. It's like, or is it the west, southwest? I don't know. Whatever direction Highgarden is.
I feel like they're south, but they're not.
Are they
not
south?
Dorne.
Are they southwest? Because I think Dorne is like southeast.
They're distant south. They're way down there in the fucking end of the peninsula.
Anyway, I actually I actually initially thought Daenerys would be my pick, then I'm like, Tywin fucking won, man. Like, I don't like Daenerys. I agree with you. Like, things went in Daenerys' favor in a big, big way this season, but she hasn't made any movements yet. You know what I mean? Like, towards her ultimate goal.
Well, for the same reason that I picked, I think I picked Tyrion in season 1 as the winner. At the beginning of the series, at the beginning of the season, he was sleeping with pigs and drunk and shit, and then by the end, I think he was, Hand of the King?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Daenerys. What does she have at the end of season 2?
She got her dragons back from Karth and
but then
burned the warlock.
She burned the warlock, and that was pretty much it. I mean, most of her
I think so.
Most of her pack was pretty much empty, and she had she's got her loyal blade, and that was pretty much it.
I guess we knew that dragons could breathe fire and were a little bit bigger. I think that was probably more or less the end of season 2 for her.
Right. So now she commands an army of 8,000 people, and she's free and slave. She's building momentum. So maybe she's not technically the winner, but she started with very little and she ended with a whole lot. So
yeah, I think in terms of net gain, Daenerys is probably at the top there. But I feel like
overall,
for what we consider the central kind of conflict of it, well, I guess really again that depends on what you look at it as. Like, you could think of it as, well, hey, there's fucking White Walkers marching on the South, in which case Tywin ain't shit, you know what I mean? But
that's true. But we're not playing that game, I guess.
But, for now, everyone's kind of concerned with the Game of Thrones, as it were. So I give it to Tywin with an honorable mention to Dany.
That's not a bad pick. I agree. Season rankings. You want me to go first? I think we'll agree here.
I think we'll agree with we have a new number 1. Is that right?
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I agree with. I definitely think season 1's better than 2, so I'm 3, 1, 2. Following from where I was in last episode, but I think season 3 is easily the best of any of the first 3 seasons, no doubt in my mind. And for the reasons I postulated in the second episode on season 2, I think season 1 is still better than season 2. So I go 3, 1, 2. But I think the big takeaway is we have a new
number 1
season atop at number 1, indeed. So season 3 is some damn good shit. Can season 4 live up to it? I don't know. You've seen some episodes, so
pretty good.
I don't know. But I recall I like season 4 pretty well. But I'm excited to get into it. So I've been going for a while. I don't really have a whole lot of other thoughts.
No, I think we don't have any more final thoughts. I think that's pretty much it.
I think the rankings kind of speak for themselves. It's some damn good shit. I guess if I had a final thought on it, I think most appropriately I could say that season 3 is fucking cool.
It's fucking cool. It's real cool.
So there you go. You heard it here first. Maybe. Thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and indeed, if you did, please spread the word. If you would like to support us on Patreon, gain access to future bonus episodes on Game of Thrones, such as our seasons 4 through 7, prior to the drop of the final season, season 8, later this year, simply head to our website, which is watchreviewrepeat.com. Click the premium tab in the top left, and then click the Become a Patron button. Again, just as a refresher, $2 on a monthly basis will get you access to all bonus episodes, Game of Thrones, future episodes beyond that, and regular access to early access to regular episodes as well. So it's a pretty good deal. We don't ask a lot. It's basically to help us, control costs for equipment and making the podcast. We do it because we enjoy it, and we're not trying to make money. And it's just one way to kind of help mitigate the costs overall. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, we are on there at WRRPod. If you'd like to like us on Facebook, you may do so by searching for Watch, Review, Repeat. Again, our Gmail account. If you have any things you want to say to us in response to what we said earlier in the episode, or if you have just general Game of Thrones thoughts, send those our way. Watch, Review, Repeat at gmail.com. Intro and outro track, Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Next bonus episode, as you might have guessed, is Game of Thrones Season 4. I think timeline-wise, we'd probably be looking at late March for that to go up on the Patreon feed if all goes well with the watching of the episodes. So look forward to that. Until then, enjoy all of our regular episodes in the interim. And, well...
Take care now. What?
I guess Andrew has something to say, but then he stepped on me. So I think he started, but now he's going to finish.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Ladies on the Menjay.